So this is a old stone building in Wales, and it's just got some fascinating brickwork, including carbon 14 in some of the bricks, and obviously still red brick, or what looked like red brick, side by side with other kinds of stone. Now the Tartarian Meltdown Viking guy, he's very convinced that only red bricks were ever used, and that a block like that is actually lots of red bricks that are just all magically joined together. He says red bricks do magic tricks. I'm not so sure about that. I think I'm a bit more open-minded to different sizes of stone being used. For instance, the lintels of these windows are in lots of ancient buildings, and they're not red bricks, are they? So there was different ways of using stone, like there is today. And I think red brick Tartarian Viking guy just needs to acknowledge that bits of metal, looks like inside this, the bits of metal would fit with the theory that these bricks could conduct heat, and they would conduct electricity, and it could be used as capacitors. So I think there's also rebuild happening. So this to me looks like a rebuild that's happened from rocks that have fallen down or a destroyed building, and then they rebuild a wall like that. So different from this side, which looks like cooked out building that they've added in some mortar just to fill in the cracks at some point. So this kind of mortar style looks like it's more recent, just to sort of shore up the building and give it a finish. But on corners of buildings, like here, sort of like a corner, they often have this big brick, small brick, big brick, smaller big brick pattern that they use on corners that you see quite a lot. So it's a fascinating place, this. Including this style of these bricked, arched, vaulted ceilings. There seem to be a trademark. And then the big slabs on the floor, which I'm not sure are original. And right next door there's this church. Interesting stained glass windows there. So glass technology seems to be something that we need to explore more. And then this vitrification kind of effect, this melted kind of effect, is something that's really interesting, that we see quite a lot. And here we see some of the carbon 14 bricks. It's still got a redness in them, whether that's hematite or actual blood, that seems to be important for being able to conduct. You can still see pockets of red brick here, just mixed in with the bricks that are cooked out. But then we get areas that just seem a bit inexplicable. So again, just going back to Viking Tartarian guy, that seems to be, he seems to be one of the leaders in this Meltology movement. But I'm not sure why he's so dogmatic about saying that everything is red brick, when plainly this window frame isn't red brick, and wasn't red brick, never was red brick. It's just a different style. It's got the red brick archway above it perhaps, And then this also this style of having the big brick sections that I don't think they're necessarily ballooned out. Some slight ballooning here of rocks. But I'm just not sure that everything is red brick. I think that's just it's an oversimplification of it. Again, the door arch, there's no way that was red brick. That's just one solid piece of stone, or sorry, two pieces of stone linked together to form that arch. These churches all seem to have these balustrades. I forget the name of them now. These struts that come out. Someone can correct me. It slips my mind. But they seem to be built to withstand mud flood or tidal wave. And then we get interesting effects like this. What are we looking at there? Why do we see that shape there? Is that the remnants of a building and then they've built on top of it? They've built, made it bigger. Why is there a discoloration there? Was there another building jutting out there? I'm not sure. Difficult to know that one. Quite an interesting grave here, surrounded by iron bars, which look fairly old, and a big slab. A huge slab covering it. Quite like that. But yeah, this Saint Pierre in Monmouth, just an interesting area, interesting set of buildings. And again, they've built a golf course on it. So what is it covering? Is it covering something? And even this wall here, this is another thing. It's like, what are we looking at here? Why do we see this difference in the areas of the wall? I'm starting to look at walls and starting to look at buildings and just trying to figure out what happened. What was the story? I wonder what this golf course is covering and how big the structure was, and then what exactly are we on top of? Almost looks like it's been deliberately chipped away, that one. So that says, I think, 1851. Again, 1860. I mean, looking at the Napoleonic Wars, so there seems to be Great Fire of London 1966, where the king allowed the dynamiting of the city. So referring back to an earlier video where one of the Truth Movement guys, I cited him in the actual video, I think it was Conspiracies or Us. He discovered that some of these American cities that suffered great fires they'd dynamited half the city basically just to create a fire break at the same time. And then also there was talk of whether it was aerially bombarded from naval ships that were docked just off the port. So it's kind of like, is it like a false flag attack that a government will arson the city to cause a fire, cause panic, get rid of the residents, and then dynamite the buildings they want to get rid of. Not sure why they would want to get rid of them yet, and that's open for debate. Maybe part of the old grid. Maybe the old grid had a healing function, or enlightenment or something that you just couldn't shut down without actually dynamiting and shutting it down. And then maybe aerial bombardment. Because the pictures of cities that have had these great fires and the stories of dynamiting them just doesn't add up, does it? So yeah, fascinating. And just driving through Wales, you just notice again the amount of stone walls. You know, if you got rid of all the stone walls and the stone buildings, these old ancient stone buildings from England and Wales, how long would it take to rebuild them? You just literally said, right, we want to rebuild everything that was here before. It's like a monumental task, beyond building the pyramids. I mean, by a factor of, I don't know, 1,000, 10,000. The amount of stone structures and buildings in England and Wales, and perhaps all around the world, is just literally staggering. And yeah, it just looks like it was the grid. It was part of the grid. It was if you can conduct electricity and if you can use bricks as capacitors, then that was the grid. That was how they shared energy, heat. But yeah, Meltology is the most interesting of the current theories, which is why I'm focusing on it. Again, are we seeing bits of metal in there? Is that a bit of metal? Or petrified wood? Not sure. But this style of adding in this extra layer of mortar, it just seems like it's a way of trying to shore up cooked out buildings that have deformed and changed and then have been rediscovered and reclaimed by the inheritors or by the controllers who come back or by the survivors who've inherited and have tried to shore up the buildings, give them some kind of structural integrity. And the Welsh dragon, the snake, the serpent, the dragon. It's on the coat of arms, it's on their flag. Very weird, reptilian, spooky, strange.